second chance in the game.
My name is Coach Carl C. Coleman. I'm the defensive coordinator and secondary coach with the University of Dubuque Spartan football program in Dubuque, Iowa. Today I'm going to be speaking about our hawk tackling progression and how we coach and teach our hawk tackling to our athletes. One of the problems with traditional tackling the last few years is it's caused a lot more concussions, and as football coaches we're trying to be good stewards of the game of football. We would love for our game to last many more decades after we're gone. It's such a great game that teaches young men more and more about themselves daily, and so we want to be good stewards of the game. And as coaches, we've had to address how we have taught the fundamentals of tackling. And Pete Carroll, one of the great football coaches of our game out with the Seattle Seahawks, revolutionized the rugby tackling. He introduced rugby tackling into college and professional football, and it has trickulated down into Pop Warner football. And so as good stewards of the game, we are trying to teach the fundamentals of tackling a lot better by keeping the head out of it. And so we're trying to limit concussions, and hawk tackling is one way to do that. Here at the University of Dubuque, we talk a lot about our circle of trust, the things that we're trying to ask our athletes to do on a daily basis. And there are certain things that are player-driven, from effort to being relentless to being aggressive to being physical to pursuing the football. Those are things that are player-driven, and as coaches, we can evaluate those areas of our athletes daily out on the practice field. And in those coach-driven side of things, where are your athletes putting their eyes? Do they have their alignment in the correct spot? How are their fundamentals? Are they communicating cleanly with one another out on the football field? Are they disciplined football players? Those things are coach-driven, and so that fundamental piece, again, is what we want to spend some time on today, talking about hawk tackling and the importance of keeping your head out of it when you go to tackle at the point of attack against a ball carrier. So we'll go through a few slides here. And one of the first things that we teach here at the University of Dubuque is we teach our guys how to wrap and squeeze. We want to make sure that they understand where their head placement should be. It should be behind the ball carrier. We want to emphasize making contact with the pectoral of our shoulder. And we want that contact point to happen where the shoulder leverage tackles at the thighs, and that we finish with the ball carrier being wrapped up at the thighs, and we end up rolling that ball carrier down to the ground. But the first drill that we start with is a little hawk and wrap and squeeze progression, where we're teaching those guys how to make contact again on the ball carrier with the pectoral of their shoulder, and they're wrapping and squeezing, interlocking their wrists or their fingers or their hands together to have a tight grip. And we really want to emphasize wrapping and squeezing that ball carrier down to the ground. So concentrating on making contact with the pectoral part of our shoulder leverage tackle containing the ball carrier on his thighs. We want our eyes to go through the ball carrier's thighs. We want to wrap and squeeze. Again, we want our eyes to go through the ball carrier's thighs, and we want to wrap and squeeze. And we're making contact with the pectoral, the breastplate of our shoulder. We're not trying to make contact with the top part of our shoulder to avoid stingers, but the near pec. So again, those coaching points are eyes through the thighs, wrap and squeeze, make contact with your near pec, wrap and squeeze. Second drill that we teach here at the University of Dubuque is a loaded hawk and roll. And so we start with our guys in a loaded position where their butt is down on the back of their heels. Their hands are on we call them on their holsters or on their six shooters, like they're getting ready to draw against quick draw McGraw. And we're trying to see which athletes can roll their hips. When they go to strike the ball carrier, getting their pec on the ball carrier's thighs, when they go eyes through the thighs, your power comes from your hips. So we're trying to see which of our athletes can be explosive and roll their hips through on contact. So from that loaded position, we're teaching our guys how to hawk and roll. Again, their head placement should be behind the ball carrier when they hawk and roll. They want to finish with their head behind, not in front, to minimize concussion. You're trying to keep your head out of it. Take your eyes through the thighs. Strike the ball carrier with the near pec, wrap and squeeze and roll hawk and roll the ball carrier to the outside, so you're rolling him, basically rolling him up, rolling up his legs, getting him down on the ground. It's a rugby style tackle. The next drill that we teach here at the University of Dubuque is a standing hawk and roll. So we want to get our guys down in a fit athletic position. We start them in a position where they have their near foot up. You'll notice on the screen that the two athletes on the left are in a good fit football position, but the athlete on the far right does not have his near foot up to the ball carrier. Again, we're working on striking with our near pec. We want to wrap and squeeze. We want our eyes to go through the ball carrier's thighs. And then if we were able to drive for 5, we would. But right now we're teaching the hawk and roll part of this drill. We want those guys to roll that ball carrier, roll him up, get him down on the ground. Shoulder leverage tackles are at the thighs. We want you to finish with the ball carrier being wrapped up at the thighs and rolled to the ground. And the fourth part of our progression, for our hawk tackling progression, is our track and gather. Some coaches call it run and gather. Well, we're teaching our defenders how to close the distance to that ball carrier. And as they close the distance, they don't want to overrun the football. They want to have a near foot up. They want to concentrate on that low hip, that back hip. They don't want to overrun the ball carrier. And they want to close the distance, close space, gain ground on that ball carrier. And so we teach a track and gather. We're tracking the ball carrier's near hip. We want to have a near foot up to the ball carrier. We're continuing to concentrate on having our eyes through the thighs. And we'll finish with a ghost tackle behind the ball carrier's back hip to simulate finishing that tackle with being behind the ball carrier. Again, just a run and gather or a track and gather drill, emphasizing on our guys closing the distance to the ball carrier, quickly closing the distance. We don't want to run parallel with the ball carrier upfield. We're tracking his near hip. We want our near foot up, eyes through the thighs when we finish on that tackle. We also teach a compression tackle. It's a 2-on-1 tackle. Some coaches call it a vice tackle. But again, the coaching points for this drill is we're trying to see which of our athletes can get their near foot up. We want them to shoot their hands at the conclusion of this drill to simulate that they're making a tackle. You want your near foot up. Your eyes want to go through the thighs. The reason why we are so big on having that near foot up, if the ball carrier was to try to change direction on you by having that near foot up, if he tried to bounce that football opposite of your near foot, you would be able to redirect and still secure that tackle. You'd be able to make a profile tackle or more of a face-up tackle on that ball carrier. And you can see that from the example on the film where the athlete tried to switch directions there on number 15. Again, compression tackle, concentrating on get our near foot up to the ball carrier, shooting our hands at the end to simulate that we're making contact on the ball carrier. And that's the fifth part of our tackle progression or our tackle circuit. The next drill that we progress to is our angle tackle. We incorporate the tackle rings for this drill. We'll set 2 rings up and we'll have a defender close the distance to the ball carrier, and the coach will have one of the 2 scout guys roll the ring in opposite direction of each other. We want to see our athlete come to balance and react off of which ring is being rolled to simulate which ball carrier he'd have to make his angle tackle against. Again, concentrating on having your head behind. You want to make contact with the near pec. You want your near foot up. You want your eyes to go through the thighs. You want to wrap and squeeze and hawk and roll to get that ball carrier down on the ground. Again, your near foot is up. Your eyes are through the thighs. You want to wrap and squeeze to make sure that you don't lose the ball carrier doesn't run through your tackle. We don't want arm tackles. Wrap and squeeze, hawk and roll to get the ball carrier down on the ground. Finish with your head behind. This is our angle tackle drill. And the drill can be run where you have to adjust on the run by coming to balance, shimmying your feet, seeing which direction that ball carrier makes his cut, and executing an angle tackle, finishing with your head behind. The 7th drill that we progress to in our tackle circuit, and these are daily must drills that we try to incorporate into every one of our practices, either at the beginning of practice doing early outs, or our position coaches or including these drills in their daily individual drills, or we incorporated in a small group period in one of our tackle circuits. But these are drills that we touch on and hit every day, the fundamentals of tackling. Here's another another picture of that angle tackle drill from a different camera angle, different shot. Don't want our athletes to Superman when they come in to make a tackle. You don't want to dive. Take the extra step or two. Get your near foot up, wrap and squeeze at the point of attack. Get your shoulder peck on the ball carrier's thighs, hawk and roll. The seventh tackle drill that we incorporate or include is our sideline tackle. Again, we're using the tackling rings. We'll roll a ring up the hash or up a sideline, depending on where we are on the field to find space. We have our defender flip his hips and execute a run and gather or a track and gather off of that ring. And we're simulating and making that tackle on the sideline. We want to use the sideline as the extra defender, but we still want to finish with our head behind. So it's still the same coaching points: wrap and squeeze, hawk and roll, eyes through the thighs, drive for 5 with your feet. Your feet don't need to stop on contact. Accelerate your feet on contact. Run your feet through. Don't Superman and dive out at the ball carrier. Take the extra step. Again, this is our sideline tackle drill, but we want our guys to get out and run a little bit to work on closing the distance to the ball carrier, work on tracking the near hip. The ball carrier can change direction, especially in the open field. You don't want your athletes to overrun the ball carrier. Track the near hip, eyes through the thighs, wrap and squeeze, a drive for 5 with your feet when necessary if you're not hawking and rolling. And then the last part of our tackle progression that we teach here is our profile tackle. This is more of an in-the-box tackle, more of in tighter quarters tackle. We teach our guys to come to balance, shimmy their feet, but we still want to try to have a near foot up when we go to strike the bag. We still want to get our pectoral on the defender's thigh board. But this is our profile tackle where we're working more of a hawk and lift progression than we are working a hawk and roll. But the same coaching mechanics are taught to our guys: eyes through the thighs, wrap and squeeze. Here you definitely want to see those guys drive for 5 with the hawk and lift part of this progression on the profile tackle when they strike the bag. You don't want your athletes' feet to go dead. You want to see them accelerate their feet. Guys that hear me out at practice screaming, "Step on ants." If you ever stepped your foot in an ant pile, those ants get to stinging you and biting you fairly quickly. And I don't think you stand there with your feet dead. Your feet start moving really fast and really hot. And that's the exact same thing we want our athletes to simulate here. Drive for 5, accelerate your feet on contact of that ball carrier. But again, our whole rationale and reasoning for shifting to the hawk tackling progression is to minimize concussions. As football coaches, we want to be good stewards of the game of football, and so we want to try to do everything we can to help our athletes understand the importance of tackling and tackling properly, and being fundamentally sound when they do tackle, and the importance of keeping their head out of tackles will minimize concussions. So if you can finish with your head placement behind the ball carrier, more of the rugby style tackling that you see from that game is being incorporated into the game of football, and I think it will have our game, it'll make our game more lasting. It'll be around for generations to come if we continue to be good stewards of the game of football. So here at the University of Dubuque, we teach the hawk tackling progression, and for those of you who would like access to this film or any of our other clinic tapes, or if you'd like to stop by for one of our practices this spring or this fall, please feel free to reach out to us. The best way to contact us is to reach out to us via social media. You can get us on our Twitter page at Spartan Football, or you can send us an email directly to one of our assistant coaches or our head coaches, and we would love to visit with you. We'd love to see you out at one of our games as well. So feel free to come out and support the Spartans. I'd like to thank Chief Pigskin for the opportunity to talk about hawk tackling, and go Spartans.